What's up, Karl? I was thinking we can play a game of Mind Meld before we get started. But first, I wanted to ask you to explain the rules if you can, because there's a lot of people who have never heard of Mind Meld, who don't know what it is, maybe never taken any type of theater class. And so I want you to explain in detail what Mind Meld is and how to play the game.
Word. Thank you for having me. Mind meld, from what I've picked up, and I've learned this game very recently within the past couple of years. But this when two people at the exact same. It could be more than two people, but usually it's just two people at the exact same time. They count down three, two, one, and they say a word. And usually they're very far apart. And then the objective of the game is to keep um, counting down to three between two people and trying to get closer to saying the same word at the same time by meeting hopefully in the middle of those two words, if that makes sense.
And there's a song at the end, right?
Yeah, it is. How does it go? It was a mind meld. It was a mind meld. It happens all the time. It was a mind meld.
Okay, I was trying to remember that. I couldn't remember the lyrics to the song, even though it's
Yeah.
like two lines. I was like, wait, I know it was a mind meld. All right, so I was thinking we could try something new this episode, and I wanted to play a game. You started off, well, if we start off at the same time, but you could do the countdown.
Um, three, two, one.
NBA.
Basketball. Nice.
Ooh.
Okay. Whoa. Uh, I bet you we got it. Three, two,
Two,
one.
one, Bucks.
Fuck. Yeah, nice. Let's go. Not planned at all, but that's
Shout
really
out to
good, right?
the
Our home opener is tonight. I definitely have to
yeah.
talk to him.
That's
Yeah,
definitely where my mind was going.
that's what's up.
Five, four, three,
Yeah.
two.
This is the Zesty Podcast. I'm your host, Malik Anderson, aka Taka. This month marks the 1 year anniversary of Brooklyn based actor and poet Karl Michael Iglesias' book, The Bounce, an intimate collection of poems that touch on love, grief, memory, and growing pains. It's also a beautiful tribute to the place that we both call home, the city of Milwaukee, Brew City, or also known as the 414. I actually met Karl way back when while visiting the University of Wisconsin-Madison for a pre-college program for the summer. He was the cool college student who also happened to be an alumnus of my alma mater, Rufus King High School. Little did I know he would become my brother. Shout out to Sigma Lambda Beta International Fraternity Incorporated, LB86, but also a mentor and close friend. In addition to an actor, poet, and teacher, he's a beast when it comes to grant writing, as well as someone I think a lot of creatives could learn a lot from. So we're chopping it up about everything from poetry to the business side of the arts. Karl, welcome to the Zesty Podcast. Around this time last year, you were preparing for the release of The Bounce. And I remember because you were telling me about it for at least, I want to say like a year before. Um, that you were working on that book. And there was a lot of, I want to say, reflection about being from the hometown that we're both from, Milwaukee, about growing up, growing pains, um, and just remembering family. And so I'm curious, like today, which poems from the collection do you resonate with the most now that some time has passed?
That's a good question. Um, I think the ones there are some ones that I feel like discover things in real time. Like I think the first draft of them were these like moments of kind of, you know, excavating like an emotion or trying to like, you know, look at the different nuances of something in particular. Like forgiveness, for example, is a poem that's in the book that I feel like has multiple parts, and I'm learning from myself in different ways, as I see how the poem is like kind of etched out, and the sequence of the multiple parts and stuff like that. That gives me, some enlightenment still to this day. Um, and some other ones too, where like, there's like a poem in there about my an injury that I had, and kind of like the those initial feelings of like really um checking my privilege of like my body, and what that felt like to like basically, not walk for a chunk of time. um but I think the older I get from that one a little bit, I just see it in a different way, because the injury just becomes a little bit further back. It just becomes a part of like the mythology of myself, rather than as dramatic as I thought.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But that's just real shit, and I think that's something about poets that, I think sometimes we keep poems hostage because we never know to what extent are we just being dramatic about something that we'll get over eventually, and it won't even be, you know, worth standing on like that. But yeah, sometimes it's nice speaking from the heart in the moment.
Hmm. So, I mean, this collection came after a few years after Catch a Glow.
Mhm.
Do you remember what it was that drove you to publish those poems and to write some of them, and how they came together under the same collection, the same book?
I know we're talking about the Catch a Glow, or we're talking about the bounce when we.
The Bounce.
Um, I think, well, because Catch a Glow was very much it had a lens in which I was writing through, and I was definitely like responding to like Hurricane Maria and the beginning of the Trump presidency and that kind of thing. Um, and in a way, it allowed me to take my time when it came to like, releasing poems necessarily about myself and my histories and those kind of things, and allowed me to explore my identity in a different way. While I think, while becoming 30 and kind of coming in now into my mid 30s, where the majority of these poems were written, um, there was something that I was reckoning with, and I think it was a passing of a younger man who I used to be, but very much is still who I am in a lot of ways. But big chunks, I would say, have disappeared because of time, and circumstance, and getting older, and those kind of things. And I always have reflected on that time period in this like 30s, beginning in your 30s, to be like this bounce in which you kind of hit this ground of like life, like a very different like point of life, like your body, mortality, the mortality of your parents, all these things, kind of, if you've been lucky enough to that nothing has happened, you start to feel, right? And I think you begin to shift and change. I think a level of confidence comes with that bounce, but also a sense of grieving comes with that bounce, where it's like it's time to put that younger person to rest for whoever you're about to be for the next 20 years, probably. Um, and that's kind of a special feeling, but it's just a lot to deal with. So I think the work, the poems in there, are kind of a compilation of like those kind of moments and feelings and reflections up until that point. And they happen to star a lot of my past and my youth and the youthful moments, how I see the world through those youthful eyes. I try to bring a lot of that within the poems. But yeah, it's definitely like a journey of self.
It kind of sounds like you're memorializing um the person you used to be. And that's fascinating to me as someone who just turned 30 and has been having those same revelations, and realizing, and saying goodbye to my 20s. But a mutual friend of ours said something that they heard from another mutual friend of ours is that, you know, you're all these ages at once. Um, so it's like, yes, you're 30, but you're also um one, you're also seven, you're 14, 27, and 35 all at once. Um, and I'm curious for you, do you feel like that essence of who you are from your youth completely goes away, or do you carry it in some way, either through these poems or like maybe it just comes back up in your daily life and how you
Yeah,
view the world?
yeah, for sure. I think, well, I would just be honest, like speaking from someone who doesn't have kids, right? And I very much am by myself, I'm a single man or whatever. So there is a lot of freedom that comes with that life and being able to center myself in a somewhat childish way at times. You know what I mean? In comparison to like if I had like multiple children, for example, like some of my peers and stuff, they have a different kind of that reflection. I think of turning in your 30s is like from a different point of view, Um, but like just speaking for me in that way, like I do feel like, and I can't be the only one. I think a lot of folks kind of at our age are coming to like this point of nostalgia and wanting to reach back into like what it was like to grow up and be a little bit more innocent, and to see the world remember the world how you saw it in a different way. So there's like this need or want to kind of go back, and it represents my art is represented with that. But I think other, sometimes like, as I've been, and also in the past 5 years, have gotten back into professional wrestling and watching professional wrestling, which is like my shit now. You know what I mean? But like but it's totally like a slice of my nostalgia from my childhood for sure. And I know that it's a little bit more related to me wanting to like be with that version of myself longer before I lose them forever, right? And so there is like this moment of where I do feel like, oh yeah, I remember myself at a younger age in the same level of excitement or whatever, or the same level of interest. And I feel closer to him, like that child, who was me, you know what I mean? But just could be a whole different human entity at this point, you know what I mean? It's just, I think that's a little bit of what I'm also trying to explore with the book. But um, yeah, I definitely see myself going back in time and being different folks and um, depending on what I need. You know what I mean? Like, even when I think about like wanting to feel more, I don't know, confident in a room, you know, in different rooms that I enter, like sometimes I think about this brash teenager version of myself that was just had this level of foolish level of confidence. And sometimes, and as even though I gain a lot of wisdom, I still want to tap into that once in a while and be like, yeah, I'm still that kid, deep down, and that's gotten me up to here at least.
I noticed there's a lot of nostalgia in this book. And then I think one of my favorite poems, which I'm gonna ask you to read by the way, that kind of brings up that nostalgia as you were talking about is called Swinging. But before you read it, I want to know kind of where this poem came from in your mind. What was happening on the day that you wrote it that brought you back to this moment?
Well, first and foremost, I wrote this poem in a workshop called Emotional Historians. It's with a Brooklyn poet whose name is John Sands. They're originally from Ohio. They are, I think, one of the voices, speaking words right now in poetry. And I've been privileged to learn a lot from John. But I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and I don't want to like misquote this workshop because it was like some time ago, but I believe it was a workshop about like traveling, and this idea of like going from a place to another place, right? And the exercise was like poetic traveling. Um, and I think the way his workshops are really structured is obviously they're called emotional historians. That's the workshop. So it does kind of get you to go back in time sometimes and to document moments in which you've already lived in a new way. Um, and to me, the walk from my apartment to the elementary school that I went to school at um, was important to me because that was, the walk. We're all kids going, little kids up walking to school on ourselves, picking each other up on the way to each other, like, and we'd have like a little route that we would go on, and we would all walk to school together, um, it was just a source of the South Side to me, which was a part of town that like I still have so much love for, and it truly represents me in so many ways. Um, and it was a way for me to kind of paint the picture of the South Side in a way that just felt real and real narrative. And just like letting you see what I see. Um, and as you know, the poem takes a turn at the end. So swinging. My early skin stretched in the apartments off of Third and Mitchell, a block away from the freeway, a sprint from the only basketball court in the neighborhood, and a parking lot made mostly of grass that knew one day it could be a park. A pink sneeze every spring and sour red every summer, the apartments were surrounded by our poppin' ass neighbors, the crabapple trees. Would move a block away to Third and Maple to a house that was second from the corner. And on the way home from Allenfield Elementary, which was on 8th and Lapham, after a long john and flaming hot popcorn from the gas station, my birthright was to climb up those trees, swing from the wooden bars of an old shaky cage. It rained red and ripe, snuck them home in the black plastic bag from the gas station stuffed in my backpack because mommy thought it was nasty to eat off some Southside neighborhood tree. I'd wash the apples, of course, most of the time. And during Thursday night SmackDown, I'd feast and later dreamt of being a park.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Um, I love that poem, one, because it reminds me so much of Milwaukee, so much of home. And you were able to articulate experiences that I had long forgotten, um, even having. Like, I haven't thought of crabapple trees in like years. And rarely do these days do I still even see fruit on trees. I mean, when you go back home, do you still see like the same trees? Do they still bear fruit anymore?
Oh wow. I usually when I'm home, it's during the colder months of like the holidays and stuff like that, like of November and December. I was just there recently in the summer, and but I wasn't in my old neighborhood like that. So I'm curious to know if they did. But I'm sure it does. I'm sure. I hope so. I think so.
And one of the other things that I wanted to bring up, I don't know if you remember this, but do you remember what you wrote on the title page in my copy of the book when I received it?
Oh, probably not.
It said the bounce for Carla Michelle, and you crossed out and because you had to be grammatically correct. And then it goes, all my cousins, comma, and Malik. Enjoy the Milwaukee living in these lines.
Mm,
Love you, Karl.
mm.
What is the strongest influence Milwaukee has left on you as you move through the world today?
Oh, wow. I think there is. Hmm, I think that there is a sense of like a real resilient identity that I think Milwaukee has. You know, um, and I like to carry that level of gumption and resiliency within myself too. It's a very like scrappy city, and truly a city sometimes that like is at war with itself, you know? And because of that, I think a lot of the artists and folks coming out there sometimes can carry that same tension too, you know? And I know I do too, you know? And and so that's taught me a lot about the world too, you know, especially kind of coming from New York and between New York and Milwaukee. Um, but I think there's parts of me that are just cookie cutter from the city of Milwaukee just because I'm just a South Side boy, you know what I mean? Still. And you know, there is a sense of like humility. I think that comes from, you know, being from Milwaukee too, you know. Um, we are like good folks, you know, good family folks and you know, I think I carry that with myself still to this day. Try to.
Your poems also touch on a different part of you too, also, which is your identity of being Puerto Rican within the diaspora. And right now, we're seeing so many artists like Bad Bunny shining a light on the island in a way that's so mainstream that you can't even ignore it.
Yeah.
What, if anything, is missing from these conversations in pop culture, and what hits or misses for you?
When it comes to Bad Bunny in particular,
Bad Bunny and the conversation about Puerto Rican culture, art, identity, heritage,
yeah,
politics.
for sure. I well, it's something that, you know, it's not always well, like, you know, it's not always communicated, but you know, this has been something that has been going on for a while, you know, since the island, you know, since before, you know, since before colonialism. But like there's always been this sense of identity and like yearning to be free, you know, within our people. Um, and you know, there's been all kinds of moments within history, including like one of the first insurrections on you know Congress itself. You know, are of Puerto Rican people. You know what I mean? Trying to attempt murder, like you know what I mean? It's just like wild. Like there is this like deep history of us not being with the shits. You know, um, but when it comes to like you know seeing Bad Bunny, you know, kind of take over this whole new realm of popularity, it's been nothing but pride, at least for me, you know how Puerto Ricans are. It's just like I'm still to this point, like, you know, don't talk shit even about J Lo to me. You know what I'm saying? And J Lo is much more controversial, you know what I'm saying? So I'm still like, no, you know. And sometimes, you know, that gets me in a little trouble, but like, you know, we are, you know, we are a complicated, nuanced, diverse group of people, but a very like proud group of people of each other, you know. Um, but so I think Bad Bunny kind of fits in that world.
I wanted to talk to you about your role as an actor. You're you also have this different side of you to your artistry. I mean, not only are you a poet and a writer, but you're also an actor director. And you have credits on both the stage and on shows like Chicago PD, Evil, and The Last OG. How does acting on screen compare to being on stage?
Um, very different, you know, but I think a little bit of the same fun, if that makes sense, you know. Um, there's both like this level of like high stakes play because I feel like even on any screen stuff that I've done, it's just been every take and every shot has felt like a high stakes situation. You know that you know everybody's there to work and everybody's there to like get the shot, and so at the end of the day, there is still that pressure of wanting to perform, and also there's only so much time for shots too, where it's like you know you only have so much time to nail it. You gotta like bring it, and so like if you knew that, you know, if you know that you only have so much time, you gotta come prepared with that energy so you're ready to hop in it, you know. Um, and you only get a couple of shots anyways because especially depending on the size of the role, but um but I enjoy being on the stage too. You know what I mean? It sometimes even beyond the acting in particular, but like as a performer of my poetry, and as a host, as an MC for like any kind of crowds, galas, or gatherings or whatever. Um, those things I still enjoy and tapped in, and you know, I have the training for it, and I still love to do it. So it's a lovely part to like an idea that I've just I have these different parts of myself that I think I can express at different moments with these things. And I'm okay with switching between all of them, as I move forward, still doing like auditions all the time. So it feels like, putting my best foot forward in that, but um, also, directing more. I just did my off Broadway um, debut over at King Company this past spring. So that was, that was dope. And working with Hell's Kitchen right now as their community engagement fellow has been super rewarding, and we just launched a tour in Cleveland. We planned a whole block party out there, community engagement kind of effort that we did with the tour being in town and launching there, um, was really rewarding, you know what I mean? And like also used a lot of my theater brain, you know what I mean? Like, and my theater knowledge. So all of that has just been great. And I've it's been nice kind of getting to the point of feeling like I'm free of like those labels. I get that sometimes in the networking thing or in the like credits on your resume thing, you still gotta play that character and stuff like that. But at this point, I am who I am. And anytime I come into a room for one of the things, I am all there. I'm still the whole thing. You know what I mean? Um,
It
and
also
it's
sounds like you're learning a different side of the business and the arts too. And that's something I think a lot of people who, when they want to become artists or when they are, they're young artists, you don't really think about as often. You just think about creating and the doing. And so I'm curious from those opportunities that you've received, such as from Drama League, Futures Program, or Hell's Kitchen, what is a piece of insight about the business of the arts that you've learned that just didn't automatically come to you before? And you're like, oh, yeah, this is a different side of this whole like industry.
yeah, that's a good question. I think one is identifying it as this organic thing. When I say it being the theater industry, you know, it is an organic thing. And I think growing up, I always saw it as this mountain, the mountain that I would climb. You know what I mean? And like it was a mountain and it would be there forever. But really, it's not a mountain. It's an organic thing that is changing, with every year that comes. And there's more technology and there's more conversations in the sense of like, identity and what that means on the screen for like a playwright or and also for like a theater and like what audience, you know, community engagement, all these things shape the what it is. A president can shape it, what is happening, you know, sometimes because of like funding cuts and things of that nature than other, you know, um, like other adaptations to like budgets and things of that nature. Sometimes whole positions end up being cut, and it's all a part of the same ecosystem of stuff. And it's also really connected to all the other art worlds as well, both film and TV, literary world. Like they're you can kind of see them across the board. It's just that they're also very siloed. But having my hand a little bit in a couple of different places, I'm able to see that. So that was one thing for sure, learning just about like, okay, it's a breathing thing. And there's a bunch of individual breathing people that breathe the thing. And so it's as gentle as that, you know what I mean? And sometimes um, things happen quickly in that place. I also kind of am learning like the big separation between like the the kind of like Broadway world. It's a little kind of more of like a commercial world, so a lot more money involved in it and that kind of stuff. And so it moves a little different, compared to like the off Broadway world and anything regional theater, those kind of things. Um, they're all theater, but they're just you know different kind of missions attached to all of them. So it's just worth knowing how to navigate those kind of spaces so that I can continue to be myself and also find the places in which I feel most valued, um, and make a positive life out of making art rather than just making art wherever I'm allowed in. You know what I mean? That's not. I don't think the life for me.
So you brought up um all this stuff is happening that's just not in like a vacuum. It's not in a silo, such as like the funding cuts. But you are also an individual creative person, artist, poet, actor who is looking for work and constantly keeping your eye on the ball, but you're working with these big productions. Where do you think we're headed
Mm.
in the next few years in terms of what this ecosystem looks like, especially in New York City?
Um, that's I don't know. It's tough because I feel like we still have a good chunk of this presidency happening, and the way things are like cooking right now, there's some truly unimaginable things that could very well be possible in 2 years, just going on the trajectory of time so far. So I'm a little nervous about what that means for the arts in general. Because this president just hasn't been shy, you know, saying, put throwing his weight around. So I'm hoping in a good way in which theater hopefully turns more towards community, um, and understands that we'll need to take care of each other a little bit more, and we'll need to lean into each other and to lean into community relationships, um, more, instead of corporate large sponsor relationships that um, may not be as actually fruitful for like the inner artist and that we're trying to keep alive. um that's what I hope. um but we'll see. Hopefully more protest theater.
Do you have any advice for artists that are coming up behind you, or young artists that are in school now, thinking maybe they're in their teens and they're thinking like, I want to live that life. I want to pursue whatever interests me and create and make beautiful things in community. What should they do?
I
Or what
think,
is a piece of advice that you get that you received that helped you?
yeah, one of the things for sure I would suggest is to look up and look down. And when I say that, I mean like find these mentors in your life, some that are like a distant away, and then some that are just like barely older than you. I even did this in high school where I was like, no, I'm gonna, I had like I was cool with some people in a class above me or two classes above me because it just was like it paid to have somebody just a little older than me so that none of the things had to be a surprise. I could ask these like quick questions and then things like that, eh, you know where I could learn from in a safe relationship. And then also looking down, like don't when you're seeing a younger person, especially if you don't have younger siblings and stuff like that, but like caring about younger people, especially children, no matter even if you're a child yourself. Like I remember like kind of even in like fifth grade going to like help out in our um like in an alternative class that had students who needed special like attention. I found myself helping out with those young people as well. But like what it kind of teaches me and throughout this whole time is that I've always been able to kind of like keep the idea of the young people that we are trying to like reach to, and as well as seeing where I wanted to be and the mentors that were in positions that I wanted to be and seeing them move. It didn't necessarily mean I had to follow one, but that I can see how they all move and I can guide my heart and can guide my way to that thing. But it's not in a silo, right? And it's definitely not just with the people around you, right? Um, I think it does include some humility of reaching down and some humility of asking for some advice from some older folks.
Thank you. So I have this question I ask everyone. Um, you probably already know what it is, but as we wrap up, I want to ask you, what is a moment that you felt the most zesty in your career so far? Like nobody couldn't tell you shit.
That's funny. Zesty. I think for sure, the experience that I just experienced a couple of weeks ago is pretty fresh on my mind. Um, Having planned like that whole block party that was going to be in Cleveland and having it be a great success. Um, I put a lot of my effort into that, and it was one of those reminders where it's like, yeah, we can do it. We can do all things. So I'm feeling undefeated right now. So I was feeling pretty zesty at that time. You know what I'm saying?
Well, thank you. We've been talking with actor, poet, and director Karl Michael Iglesias, who's the author of both The Bounce and Catch a Glow. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I hope you get a little bit more life this week.